hello. Thank you for being here. We're going to get right into it because we only have 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Sounds great.
I'm going to turn to you, Donte, first.
Okay.
So we're here because of this little book thing that we got going on.
Right.
This book essentially captures your life growing up in DC and all of the lived experiences that came along with that, and follows you through your career to leading profitable companies and high impact teams. But really what we're here to talk about today is a different formula that you're using as you think about being a leader in the ops space and combining community, creativity, and operations.
Yeah.
So I would like for you to give a sense for folks here of what we really are talking about when I say creativity, community, and operations, that profit and purpose.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think the background context about my upbringing is relevant because I come from humble beginnings, grew up in DC in the 90s. It was a crazy time. And, as I saw that community evolve, I think it had a unique impact on me as a person. Went off to school, fell into the industry like so many of us have. And I always, as I was growing in my career, wanted to retain the perspective of what it was like growing up in the city, what it was like being in those environments, and the relationship we as a community had with the business community. And I always felt like if that dynamic was ever going to change, it was incumbent upon the leaders on the business side to create space and opportunity and on-ramp for that connection. And so when I got to a space where I had even a little bit of influence on the decisions that were being made in the business every day, I wanted to personally set an intention and a mission to drive that forward and to advance that agenda. And so when we were working together in Baltimore at Revival, the hotel already had a high level orientation towards social impact when I arrived. I didn't create that for that property. It was just what I had always lived and was doing anyway. So it was a great intersection, and I think a great combination of what they were already looking to do and what I had already been doing. And so when we talk about all the decisions that are made in the business every day, you could look at intentional sourcing, you could look at where you get talent, you could look at how you're programming the spaces. And I think at every one of those intersections, there's an opportunity for us to be a little more intentional. And I think we are the most values-driven consumers and workforce that's ever existed, partly because we have the information to do so. And we've had the most talented marketing people who've ever lived messaging to us since we exited the womb. So we were having this conversation a few minutes ago. If I see a cup of Starbucks in a movie, I don't think, oh man, I want coffee because that guy looks cool and he's got Starbucks. I think Starbucks paid money to be in that movie. And so I think we're just a little more discerning. And so as we are making decisions as consumers and as a workforce, I think being the best loved hotel in the space, being the best loved restaurant in the space creates a unique advantage for you from a business perspective. And it also, to me, is modeling what the spirit of hospitality should be anyway.
Okay, so I read the book cover to cover.
I'm glad you didn't bring the highlighted version. That
I do. You want me to go get it on my purse? I have the little
don't.
Post-it tabs. What really struck me is a quote. I think it's toward the beginning of the book, and it says, "Assembling the right souls and hearts around a notion that businesses could change and improve lives, and do so without sacrificing the goal of profitability." Right? That is that combination of profit and purpose. So Ken, I'm going to turn to you, Mike, and can you just talk a little bit about, give an example for those in the audience about what that looked like, maybe in Baltimore. I laughed because whenever you tell the story, you're like, it all started with toilet paper. But whatever example you'd like to give folks in the audience about how these concepts have really came to life when you were doing your work in Baltimore.
Yeah, so in a little context, I was on the ownership side. Donte was responsible for overseeing the hotel and driving both impact and profitability. So we were partnered together for several years together. We've been on these types of stages or had these conversations in the past, and half the time we do start the conversation by talking about toilet paper. It's a great way to show even the smallest examples of the decisions that are made day in, day out can have a huge impact on the community that you're in. And so in that particular case, Donte finding a local business that was manufacturing toilet paper during COVID. And if you don't all remember how scarce it was a rush on toilet paper. It was the craziest thing. Donte was able to find a local vendor, minority woman-owned business in Baltimore making this product. It was in high demand, but it meant so much more to the community and to the hotel that he was able to search out someone who could really feel the impact, as opposed to finding the absolute cheapest product out there and to save a few pennies around the edges. And so when we looked at the P&L statement for a property, we could see literally thousands of decisions being made every single year. It's where you buy things, how you hire people, where you find the people that are going to be at your front desk, how you train them, how you mentor them. And at each of those intersections, you can find a way to make a more thoughtful decision that's going to have a positive impact on the community. What Donte did and his team did so amazingly well was he inspired the entire property to think that way. So you take one person's vision or view on how we can impact the community, multiply it by 105 if you have that many employees within the business, show them that they can be part of making important business decisions that also have a really positive impact on the community. Think about the impact that you can have. And we've said this many times in the past. This isn't one person's work. This is about creating a culture within a building that says, this is what we stand for. Yes, we need to make money. We are representing investors that demand a profit, but there's a way of doing business that's going to further impact the community, and you're going to create a loyalty and excitement around that building that you wouldn't have otherwise.
The another quote was, "We're not saviors, we're neighbors." So Donte, can you give, especially when you went from Baltimore down to Atlanta, and a few of the panels throughout the past couple of days have talked about how you can drive revenue, that's outside of room sales, right?
Yep.
Can you give an example of what that looked like, whether it was in Baltimore or in Buckhead, from an entertainment perspective, bringing the community in, right? Yep. We say community, but what does that really mean, right?
Yeah, I love the question. First, I want to go back to the previous point. And, I think the alignment work is so critical in all of this. And when I point to the alignment work, it's hard to do that without talking about the way that Mike was able to block and tackle for us. I think you get none of this done if you don't have alignment on the ownership side. And so there's a chapter in the book dedicated to how you get all this stuff, we didn't say the word stuff, approved, because it becomes so difficult to get people to think long term and to buy into the thesis that being the best love drives performance. And so I think were it not for that, and we had a ton of crazy ideas, and there was never a feeling that it wouldn't be well received. Late night text messages every time something crazy pops into your head. Mike was always there for that. He was always responsive. And I think that buy-in wasn't just the property team, it was on the ownership side as well. And I think largely, he drove that. And so grateful for that partnership. I've said this for a long time. We looked at this as operating a business without walls. And so if we look at it through a lens of trying to redefine where the business ends and where the community begins, it doesn't remove commerce from the equation. It just sort of restructures how commerce looks. And so if you live in the community surrounding the hotel, but you work from that building every day, then you're probably going to have a cup of coffee, lunch, maybe a cocktail at the end of your Zoom calls, and that starts to add up after a while. And so incrementally, you just drive revenue by inviting people into the space. So we have people who lived in the community, and we're largely a work from home environment still. People haven't returned to the office. So these hotels that are situated in residential or sort of semi-residential environments have a unique opportunity to bring people in. We had people working on a daily basis from the rooms that we were in. So we got out of offices, and I still encourage leaders in the industry to get out of your office, go work from the lobby. It's okay. It's not going to ruin the guest experience. Go see what's going on every day. But as we did that, people started to show up, and then they'd work in the space too. We had people from other hotels that were in DC, but they're based in Baltimore, who would just show up and be in the space. And I think we look at these things like there's no nuclear codes being discussed in the boardroom at Revival on any given day, right? You can be in the room with us, and everyone was super respectful when we said, hey, we need the room. We've got to have a different conversation that you can't be a part of. But in general, adding energy to the space, adding incremental revenue was something that drove tons of value to the business. And when we did have a crazy idea, before we put it in front of Mike, we could put it in front of somebody in the community who represented the audience that we were targeting and say, tell me if this is crazy or not. And, 8 times out of 10, because we're in direct connection with them every day, we were synced up. And so it was a great thing.
Give an example of that, a crazy idea that actually ended up being good.
Ooh, that's a good question. What were the craziest ideas?
I mean, it sounds obvious, but even something like your curated DJ stuff, bringing in local vendors, right?
I love that one, actually. So April 2000, whatever the year was that business started coming back, nobody could find staff, right? And we're largely still reliant on contract labor and housekeeping for these businesses to survive every day. So you have people who, for the first time, are now cleaning hotel rooms, and I need you to clean 16 of them every day in order for us to survive. Couple that with all the pent-up demand from social groups. Everybody still wants to get married, but now I can actually do it. All those bookings immediately come back, and the staff can't keep up. And so everybody wants to do an early arrival on a Friday or Saturday. Mm-hmm. It's the worst possible scenario because that's also the day that a lot of people are checking out. So we were thinking, okay, we can't immediately make the room attendants faster. So what we can do is, while people are sitting in the lobby, let's curate an experience for them. So the first thought was like, all right, well, let's just pop a DJ into here. And there's tons of DJs that are local to the neighborhood that are, really prominent in Baltimore. So we can bring a little bit of the Baltimore vibe to the experience, create something that feels a little less painful when you're just sitting and waiting in the lobby. And then when we went to ownership with it, the prep area where the bartenders did all of their prep for the cocktail program was just on the other side of a wall. And for whatever reason, this area had beautiful tile that nobody could see. And so the thought was, well, what if we just cut a hole in it and it becomes sort of exhibition bar prep? You can see the guys doing what they're doing before they do it. But also, if you're in that space, the DJ's playing, you're waiting for your room to get ready, you can grab a cocktail. And so then we took it one step further and said, what if we built an all canned program? So we reached out to Bacardi. They were super generous. They gave us canning equipment. We canned our own cocktails. They canned beer, wine, spirits. And so now anybody can do it. And we probably made $800 to $1,000 in incremental revenue on a Friday or Saturday from people who would have been complaining about not being able to get into their rooms. Now we just curated a little vibe for you so you can have a middle stop before you get to the room and go to the rehearsal dinner or whatever the wedding plan is.
That is real leadership, right? Like taking a challenge, adding the creativity, the hustle, all of that. I love it.
Yeah, we had the right people around the table, though. And so we brought that idea to ownership. They were like, great, well, what do we brand it? What do we call it? And let's make a sign and let's really turn it into a thing versus what's the minimum version of this? What costs us the least? Go do it in a way that's value engineered right out of the gate and destined to fail. And then we'll point to the idea and say it was broken instead of our execution of the idea and the alignment that we're able to get around
idea versus execution. Interesting. I'm going to come over to you, Mike, because I'd love for you, in your own words, to characterize, right, the value of having the right relationship, right? And then wearing your owner hat, if we think about the GMs in this audience and the operators and the relationships that they want to build, if they have an idea or they're just trying to convince the owner to make an investment of any kind, right? Like, what are some of the considerations in how they approach it, how they position it, right, to get buy-in from a Mike? Yeah,
I think the first thing, just to piggyback real quick on what Donte said, the attitude that I think we collectively built between ownership and the property was the notion of yes and, as opposed to, well, no, and this is going to cost us a bunch of money, and how is that going to work, and how are you going to measure it? Can you really show me that it improved guest satisfaction? And you can come up with a bunch of BS, comments back that maybe pushes back an idea or tries to minimize the idea. Our approach, the attitude always was, well, yes, and what other things can we add to this idea? How do we make it better? How do we even make it more impactful to the property? The brilliance of a lot of what Donte and the team did, and this gets to your question, Jennifer, in terms of how to approach ownership, was you can start small with a whole lot of things. There are so many different ideas that this team brought to the table that, one, either didn't cost money or involved money that we were already spending, and just spending that money in a different way, or spending that money on a vendor that you hadn't thought of before. And you rack up 10 or 12 or 15 small wins. That then builds the confidence and creates the dialogue with ownership for you to be able to say, okay, I'm going to think of something bigger. I want to do a capital project in the bar that might cost $50,000. but I've got a track record with ownership that says that is demonstrated to them. I know what I'm doing. I know how to take a little bit of risk, and I can go get this done and show a true ROI. And having the transparency from the team was really critical, because they would come to us. Donte would come to us and say, "Well, that shit didn't work. This one worked great on a weekend. This one didn't. But here's what we learned from it." And then we could put that lesson into play in some other part of the business. And so being able to kind of keep that constant dialogue going around successes, failures, challenges, and then adapting the lessons learned. My comment back to Donte always was, you can do whatever the hell you want. Just tell me what you learned. Tell me what happened. What was the result? How'd you make it a little bit better? And that's what they did.
I love that. And that's a business conversation, right? Nothing about that is different than any other conversation you would have. The approach, right, is really the only difference. The subject, I should say.
And
That's absolutely right.
I think for us, the difference in sort of I'll say the asset management or ownership mindset or attitude that we had was, we agreed and bought into a thesis that candidly is a little bit hard to measure. It takes some faith and it takes some risk taking, but we were locked in arms. We knew exactly we knew exactly kind of what the North Star was going to look like if we committed to it, if we took risks, and if we executed well. And we from an ownership perspective, we could have just held feet to the fire and said, "Show me an ROI on every single thing you do." Well, guess what? He would have said, "You know what? I'm demoralized. I could spend my time doing something else. I don't want to fight this fight with ownership." No, we're on the same team. Right. We're after the same thing, and we agreed on what that thing was, and then we went.
We got 12 minutes. Can you tell everybody about the Squeegee Kids of Baltimore, please?
Wow. So I think every major city has a version of this population. And so when you think about what is commonly referred to as at-risk youth, and I was one of these kids growing up. Those kids got to do something in order to get by, and oftentimes that's something entrepreneurial. And so when I was a kid, we would go to a gas station and pump people's gas, and then they give us a little money, and we go put it together and go buy a pizza, and that might be how we ate that day. And so in Atlanta, it's the water boys are selling bottled water and Gatorade. It's typically room temperature, and you don't really want it, but you buy it anyway because you got to support these.
It's like
kids.
the dollar water when you're walking. It's like
exactly right.
So hot on the National Mall, and you're
exactly
parched,
right.
and I'm buying that water.
So in Baltimore, these are the Squeegee Kids, and this is a little emotional for me, so I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have a population of young kids. It's probably 200 or 300 people who are disconnected from school. They're disconnected from work, and they're squeegeeing windshields at busy intersections in order to get by. And largely, they could be doing things that are way more destructive and way less entrepreneurial, but this is the choice that they've made. And this is a population that at times is stigmatized and viewed as, at best, a nuisance by the business community, because people see this as something that creates headwinds for people coming downtown to support restaurants and other businesses. So a lot of the conversation in the media around this population of young people is broadly unsupportive and, in my opinion, really damaging. So at one point we were having a PR meeting, and I can rant. I rant from time to time. And so I'm in this PR meeting and I'm ranting about how I don't like how people are talking about these kids. And so our PR person says, "Well, you should write an op-ed about it." And I was like, "Well, I don't want to write an op-ed about it," but eventually I end up doing it. But it's so long that nobody will run it. So then there's an issue or an incident where a guy pulls up to an intersection, jumps out with a bat, attacks a group of these young people. One of them shoots and kills the guy. So now what was a stigmatized population of young people is now a national conversation about violent crime, about poverty, about racism, and on and on and on. And now all of a sudden, conveniently, there's a huge appetite to run the op-ed in its original form, too long and everything. So it ends up getting run. The mayor's office creates an initiative to create an on-ramp into hospitality for these young people. They tried it at another hotel, didn't quite work out. We stepped in. We ended up bringing on maybe 8 of these young people at the hotel in various positions: baristas, house attendants, front desk, bell attendants, the whole thing. So over time, maybe half of that group sticks. And the deal was the mayor's office will pay for their hourly wage for the first 6 months. After that, if you keep them, you pay them. And now they've got what could be the start of a meaningful career in the industry. So they became a part of the family. And what you realize is that it wasn't just having an opportunity for work, because largely they were buying into something that didn't pay as much as squeegeeing windshields. You make much less as a bell attendant than you make squeegeeing windshields in Baltimore. They were buying into the idea that they should participate in society differently, and we asked them to do that. So I made a promise to 3 of the guys that if they made it to 6 months, I'd have a friend of mine, Miguel Wilson, who did the tux for my wedding. He did Westmore's tux for his inauguration. Miguel's pretty big in the space. That I'd ask Miguel to make suits for them, and I would pay for them. When I called Miguel, he said, "I will absolutely not have you pay for these suits. Bring them by the shop. I'm going to be in town for Westmore's inauguration anyway." And so we took them to brunch. We went and got suits made. And we're giving them all the traditional advice: get a neutral color, navy suit, gray, white shirt, whatever. And Davion, who became the spokesperson for this group of young people. He was on TV every week in Baltimore, became very well known as a kid who was on the right track, picked this bright blue suit. And, we kind of had a good laugh about it. I remember the day the suits arrived at the hotel, running around everybody, giving them their suits, having them try them on, sending the pictures back to Miguel. I sent him pictures every time one of the kids was on TV wearing the suit. And that is the suit that Davion is wearing on the funeral program of his funeral, because he passed away last month. And so I struggled with this, because this was the second time this happened, where we bring a young kid in through a program, we ask for their trust, we get them to buy in, they do all the things we asked them to do. And when I was one of these kids, I did the things. I worked hard, I got good grades, I went off to college, I came back, and I was able to build a career. And so that's just what's supposed to happen. But when the rest of the community isn't quite there yet, then you have these incidents where, wrong place, wrong time, a kid who does all the things, and it still ends in the most tragic way possible. And so you start to feel hopeless, and you start to feel like, I don't know what more we could do. And I'm sorry, this is a really long-winded response, but I was not expecting the question. So what I took from that is a renewed commitment to the work. And we got to now get back in the lab. We got to build a larger coalition. We got to get more people involved and get more people to understand that in order for us to truly affect the outcomes that we're trying to create for these young people, and largely for the community at large, it's going to take a bigger tent. It's going to take all of us.
Thank you for sharing. I should have given you, that just came out of nowhere. Oh Lord. Why do this always happens? Oh.
Sorry.
Okay, so within the context of this, one of the things that we were preparing for this, DEI, right? This whole Lord, the dreaded words of DEI, which have been weaponized in so many ways. I'm going to turn to you because, it gets to the point of this question, which is, you started this work. Community looks a few different ways, right? It's from the supplier side, how you've brought people in to bring business to individuals who may not have had it before, and you're able to, as a business, grow, right? It looks like workforce recruitment and elevating your community. That is driving your business forward. That is what DEI is. And so I'm going to just turn it to you, Mike, and kind of just get your thoughts about the current environment, how you look at it within the context of the amazing work that you and Donte started. Like, where's your head at with all of that?
Yeah, so it's interesting to think about. So we've known each other for 7 years, 8 years. We started working together pre-COVID. Started a lot of this work, started a lot of these ideas and strategies around what we were doing. I'll get back to that, what we were doing in just a second. But we then went into COVID. We all know the stories and what happened with to us with what happened in our society during COVID. We then come out on the other side of that. We know the the backlash, the criticism, the pulling of funding, everything that's happened from the current administration to really punish what was known as DEI. And the important thing Donte and I always had in mind with this work that we were doing was there's no label for it. We in society we label things because it's convenient. It puts things in a box. It makes it like really identifiable. You can measure it if there's a label to it. You can put metrics and you can say that you succeeded or you failed. We always looked at this work as treat people well, do the right thing, be creative, be a good citizen in your community. None of those initiatives have a D or an R next to it. It has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with me trying to advance a certain agenda, Donte trying to advance a certain agenda. It's just doing what we should be doing as humans and doing what we should be doing as hospitality professionals, right, which is treating people well, looking out for our community, and being thoughtful, being creative about that business decision I'm making, where I'm hiring that front desk agent from. Can I do it more creatively? Can I do it in a way that's going to lead to a better outcome for that person, for the business, for me, for everyone around that person? And so we've always resisted labeling anything that we ever did together because we just felt like it was frankly the right thing to do. It's the right way to behave, the right way to treat people. Yeah. And I think we've always thought of it as a much more, it's a simpler and more sustainable model, if you will, to get behind. And it's something that frankly no one can pick on. And I don't want to focus too much on what the current administration does, even though I think it's I think we're going backwards in so many ways, but we don't have to play that game. We don't have to go down the path of certain numbers or certain things that fit in someone else's box. The way we behave can be measured pretty clearly, and the things that Donte and team did in Baltimore and beyond. Ask anyone in the city. Ask anyone there. Do they know what Hotel Revival is? Do they know somebody that was positively impacted? They know someone that worked there. Did they have a great experience at an event that wouldn't happen in any other hotel? The answer is yes. If you go take that poll in Baltimore, the answer is going to be yes to all those questions. And so in the divisive, challenging, tense, conflict-ridden world that we live in, those few initiatives or thoughts that we always had in mind can live on and will live on.
Yeah, I love that response. And I think to your point, we never had a conversation about DEI until it was politicized, because it just wasn't the way that we were thinking. We were thinking, who are the best people for these roles? And in a city where 2/3 of the population is Black, if you're running a hotel where 90% of the leadership team is white, then there's got to be some way that you reconcile that.
The math ain't math.
And either we believe that white people are predisposed to being better leaders, or we think that there's something in there that needs to be sorted out. And I've done recruitment trips for multiple companies at some of the best schools in the country. There is no group that I've been more impressed with than the kids at Howard. And we have some of these students in the front row today. I'm blown away by them. And there is not a hotel or an industry that wouldn't benefit from their interest and their participation. So I really, really struggle when I go into these spaces, when I go to these events, and I don't see representation, because the first thing you hear is, well, where do we get the talent? And we start asking questions about aptitude and capacity when I know these students exist. I spend time with them every day.
Preach.
Oh, there we go.
And the mic drop. Well, it wouldn't be a panel if I didn't cry. So seriously, though, in all seriousness, thank you. Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Donte, for your time. And thank you for everyone for being here with us this afternoon.